I made a video about this when it was first happening. All of the big name public KDE developers also stated exactly what is happening. But for some reason, we are still seeing people say that KDE Plasma is dropping support for non-systemd systems, along with that, dropping support for FreeBSD. So recently a bunch of articles like this came out. KaOS Linux drops KDE Plasma after 12 years for Neri and Noctalia to escape systemd. KaOS 2026-02 debuts Neri Wayland desktop while exploring life beyond systemd, and XDA developers, a Linux distro has dropped KDE Plasma after 12 years as it tries to escape systemd. In an earlier post they also said, plan is to not use a Plasma-based ISO this time. Instead, test if a Neri/Noctalia-based ISO is doable. There are no plans yet to make this permanent, but it would be good to get a stable ISO one time with this setup. As for why they're doing this, there's an even older post, going back to November 2025. As you might have noticed, KaOS has been stuck on an old version of systemd for a few years now. Systemd 254 is the last version that fully supports using what they call a split/user setup, i.e. not symlinking the whole distribution together. With 256, all support for AUFS used in the ISO creation has been removed too, so the whole foundation of KaOS no longer aligns with what systemd demands. So whilst there is this interest in changing things because of Plasma, this is actually the core reason. Their build tooling does not align with what systemd is trying to do now, and unless they want to redo their entire build tooling, they have to move off systemd. Now, I would suggest updating your build tooling to make it align, but this is the plan they've decided to go with. But because of this bit, since Plasma pretty much demands systemd and will be fully mandatory soon, along with all of the articles that went and covered this, this prompted KDE across their various platforms to make a post about what is happening with systemd. A quick anti-FUD FAQ to debunk the KDE is forcing systemd hoax. Now personally, I'm not generally a fan of the phrase FUD. I feel like in most cases it's like overused and especially misused, but in this situation, I think it is pretty apt. Now, all of this discussion stems from the new, not actually new, Plasma Login Manager. This is building off of SDDM, so it's a new fork if you want to be mostly accurate. And it's going to be adding in a bunch of things that are really nice. Things like virtual keyboard support, keyboard layout switching, easy CJKV input, remote desktop from startup, because right now in Plasma, if you want to do remote desktop, you have to already be logged in. So that means you've actually got to have physical access to the machine first, and then do the remote desktop, which is quite a bit less convenient. And a big one, screen reader integration for blind people. You're also going to have better theming integration and a bunch of things that make the Plasma Login Manager a really good option to go with. Focus on that word though. Really good option to go with. Does the Plasma Login Manager require systemd to work? Yes, absolutely. That is 100%, well, not even happening, has already happened. The code has been merged. So, you are forcing Plasma users to use systemd. No, the Plasma Login Manager is one of probably half a dozen login managers or more that can boot Plasma. We made Plasma Login Manager because it would give distro creators a cool piece of kit that can, not must, not should, can be tacked onto a system to boot into Plasma. You do not need to use the Plasma Login Manager, not only when it's not ready, which is the state it's currently in, but when this is shipping as a default part of Plasma, you don't have to use it. You can use any other login manager that is going to boot Plasma, and pretty much most of them will work. So I don't have to use Plasma Login Manager. You can completely ignore Plasma Login Manager. Please be our guest and use any other non-systemd dependent login managers that will work and continue to work just fine now and in the future. A bunch of KDE maintainers have stated there is no plans to stop you using a different login manager, a different display manager. That's still going to be supported into the future. Now, could this change? Yeah, absolutely, it could very well change, but there are no plans, there is no code to stop this, there is no indication that this is the route they are going. Frankly, you don't actually need a login manager. If you want, here's what you can do to start Plasma. You can do start Plasma-Wayland, and that will start up Plasma. That will work totally fine. If you're on X11, you can do start Plasma-X11 in your Xnet RC, and that will also work totally fine. You don't need to use a login manager. They're totally optional. Now, are they going to make some things better? Yeah, for sure. It's going to be nice to have a graphical login screen. It makes it easy to swap between different environments. So if you have Plasma and Cosmic and Sway installed, you can just go to the little drop down and select the thing you want. If you're doing things from the TCY, you can start all of those by hand, but you need to remember the commands to actually go and start them. If you want something that's kind of in the middle, there's projects like LY. This is a lightweight 2E login manager. I think it's really cool. It's not my vibe. I typically just like to open up things directly from the TCY, but this is also an option, and this is totally supported. Is KDE planning on making any of Plasma's core components dependent on systemd? No. So Plasma does not and will not require systemd to work now or in the future. That is correct. Key focus on planning. There are some possible theoretical routes things could go down. Someone asked, how long do you think it will be practically feasible to continue being independent of systemd for core Plasma? Depends. One massive trend coming over the horizon is services pivoting away from dbus in favor of point-to-point varlink. That means something doing user-level socket activation will be needed. Systemd has that out of the box. I don't know about the others. This isn't a core tie to systemd. You could have another component that comes along that does that as well. However, if or when that time comes, that is a bridge we will cross then. This is an idea that is possibly, maybe going to happen in the future. There is some possible interest in doing this, but this is not something where there's any official planning. There's no code that's been written to go down this route. At this stage, it's a possibility that could maybe happen. When indeed. And if it does happen, you can be sure I will be there to talk about it. So it will continue to work on non-Linux systems like FreeBSD. Correct. What's going to happen is FreeBSD is just not going to use the Plasma Login Manager, as they already aren't using the Plasma Login Manager. Maybe they'll stick with what they're currently using, maybe they'll swap to something else, but that's the only change they need to make in the current state that Plasma is in. Again, if things change in the future, 5-10 years from now, yeah, hey, it might change then. But the state that things are in, with the work currently being done, that's all they need to do. And that's already been done because there are people in the KDE Plasma chats who are FreeBSD developers. It's not like this is something happening in a void and FreeBSD is trying to scramble to do things. There are FreeBSD users who are developers on KDE. With that being said, there's this idea floating around that, oh, well, Plasma's going to drop support for FreeBSD anyway, because there's going to come a point relatively soon, in a year or so-ish, that Plasma is going Wayland only. And there's this idea that FreeBSD doesn't support Wayland. I'm not entirely sure where this idea came from, but that's not actually true. I assume it comes from both OpenBSD and NetBSD, though. So, on OpenBSD, things are being done. You can technically get Sway working. It's not perfect, it needs a lot of additional work, but you can do this. It's functional, and also, there is experimental Plasma support. Also, about 5 years ago, I guess 6 years ago now, NetBSD put out this article, Wayland on NetBSD, Trials and Tribulations, where they basically said that Wayland is tied to the Linux way of doing things, and this is just never going to work on NetBSD. That was then, and this is now. So, last year at BSDCan, Adventures in Porting a Wayland Compositor to NetBSD and OpenBSD by Jeff Frasker. So, whilst it is still early on, there is actually being work done to make this happen. As for FreeBSD itself, well, here's their handbook. Here's the section on Wayland support. It's not supported out of the box. There's some additional changes you need to make, like some settings you need to set to actually make it work, some packages you need to install to, have Wayland working. But this page has existed, this section in their documentation has existed, at least according to the Wayback Machine, for about 3.5 years now. Is it going to be perfect? No, absolutely not. But everything that I've heard about Wayland support on FreeBSD is basically old NVIDIA is broken. Old NVIDIA is broken on Linux because old NVIDIA is just broken. But besides that, besides the extra additional tweaking you need to make, it's mostly just fine. It's so fine, in fact, that there have actually been homegrown Wayland compositors made for FreeBSD. The project has now been dead for a couple of years, but there is Hikari. This was made FreeBSD first. If there's something I'm unaware about with FreeBSD Wayland support, do let me know, but my understanding is it's basically fine. Obviously, you're going to have the same problems that exist also on Linux when they're missing protocols and applications don't support it properly. Yeah, understandable, but I mean, FreeBSD specific problems. I'm not aware of that many, besides it just being slightly more awkward to go and set up. So why have I been hearing that KDE will force systemd down everybody's throats via Plasma then? There's two main reasons here. Firstly, people that were misinformed back when this story first broke and never realized they were wrong, or maybe they realized they were wrong and then didn't feel like, learning why they were wrong. Secondly, the people that try to actively misinform you about what is happening for whatever reason they might have, whether it be an agenda against Wayland, anger is good for clicks, or just likes chaos. I don't know what is happening in their minds, but this is not happening. If something changes in the future, you can expect me to be there. I know KDE developers. I will speak to them, ask them why they're doing things, but for now, Plasma doesn't require systemd. Only the Plasma Login Manager does, and the Plasma Login Manager is completely optional. FreeBSD support is not being dropped. There are FreeBSD developers that work on KDE and are involved in KDE chats, and that's basically it. Yeah. It's probably for the best to, bring the temperature down on this and discuss actual problems, because this is not an actual problem. I understand that no matter what I say here, I cannot stop people saying what they're going to say. If people want to just say nonsense, they can do that. That is your right to do so. But at the very least, I can try to correct the record so people that want to be informed can actually be informed. So let me know. Did you even know that anyone still thought that Plasma was dropping systemd support? Had you seen that going around? Did you think that was the case? I would love to know. So, if you liked the video, go like the video, go subscribe as well. If you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon subscribe Daily Bearer Pay linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and hopefully this is the last time I talk about this. It won't be.